Greetings, Mark Garang here, publisher of The Sun, on another sun-filled day here in the Mount Washington Valley. My guest is Chris Lewey. Chris, I'm going to call you a seasonal guest.
Seasonal guest.
You're like the leaves that come in, the snow that goes out.
In a few different ways, yeah.
Yeah. So, Chris,
good.
You are Raven Interpretive Programs. You speak. A lot to do with Tin Mountain, and you do trips around the world, actually.
I do.
Yeah, you do. And so we're going to talk about migration.
Yeah.
Birds.
Yeah. Birds and not mammals.
Not mammals.
Well, because our mammals don't migrate, with the exception of a few species of bats. And I think that's an important, part to look at. The birds really need to leave. Some of them. And the fall migration here in northern New England is really a spectacular event. It's subtle, and if you're not aware of it, you miss it. And
well, they're gone.
Well, there's a pulse to it, and if you're tuned into it, it's absolutely spectacular.
Yeah, but how can regular people? How can I know you're leading a hike actually next weekend for hawks out in Maine, but barring that, I just noticed in my yard, I think the robins are going. Robins don't winter over, right?
They have a differential migration. Some of the population, the bulk of the population will leave, but there'll be several that'll stay. Sometimes small flocks
over the winter.
Over the winter, yeah, which we can see clearly on the Christmas bird count that we've been doing in the valley for 35, 40 years. So you can see what birds still stick around, and it's all dependent. The whole thing, the bottom line, is about the food. If there's food here, they can stay, and if there isn't any food,
but not the weather. I mean, obviously it's a combination.
Well, birds, they have 112 degree temperature compared to our 98.6, 104 to 112. It varies depending upon the species. So as long as they've got the fuel, they can keep warm, and they've got, of course, down coats. So they're in pretty good shape. And
you explained once about the legs, how the veins are
right.
Yeah, explain that.
You remembered that. Yeah, it's an interesting thing. It brings up, I think it's Allen's rule, which is an ecological rule of body size, and the birds, of course, their legs, most species, not feathered. So they don't have the heat retention ability in their legs. So they have what's called a countercurrent heat exchange, where the veins and arteries, unlike in humans,
which run parallel.
Yeah, they run separated. Our arteries are much deeper than the veins that are on the surface. And with the birds, they're wrapped around each other. So they have contact with each other. They don't exchange the blood, but they exchange the heat. So the warmer arterial blood that's going out to the toes loses its heat, not to the environment, but to the colder blood that's coming back towards the core of the body. It's fascinating. It's a heat exchange system. Wow. And we see it in some of the long-legged mammals, like our moose, our coyotes.
They have that same
They
system?
have the same thing. It's called the rita mirabile, which I think is French for miraculous web, something like that. So it's more than just wrapped around there. Interchangeable, not interchangeable, but there's an interchange. Intertwined, where that heat is exchanged. Absolutely phenomenal.
Now, which birds stand on one, like you always see seagulls standing on one foot. It's like they're missing a leg.
Right. And of course, they're keeping that tucked up underneath, and it's warm. It's just like us. It's the extremities lose the heat faster. Our nose, our ears, our phalanges.
They have pretty good balance then on one.
I don't know how much they'd go into any kind of a dance in that mode, but they're pretty comfortable with it. And then they switch. Often you mentioned seagulls, but often you, wow, does that one only have one leg? Because it disappears. Yeah, it disappears.
Hey, we're going to get into some slides, but I just want to ask you, I know we've talked about this sort of before, but I live on Conway Lake, and I've had a flock, not a flock, but many ducks have come up, walked up like 100 feet off the lake. Somebody originally fed them.
Yeah.
So they're being a little bit habituated. They've been coming to, and this one pair has been coming to my house for 4 years.
Yeah.
Which is
mallards, I assume.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's amazing that the two would be alive after 4 years.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
And this year I had as many as 13. I
Wow.
literally bought a big bag of food. When I come home at night, it's like we just we kind of get
they
together.
love it.
But one of them is banded.
Oh really? Huh.
So I couldn't. Obviously I can't see what it is. But,
yeah. Huh.
So
I don't know what kind of studies is going on now for.
But how long does the duck live if they're not?
Gee, I really don't know. Domesticated ones would typically live longer than ducks in the wild, but it's hard to tell. I mean, the longevity of a duck probably is quite long after it gets over the first year or two. They're probably, out of that clutch of 10 eggs,
right?
There are probably only a few that make it, beyond that.
But my ducks are gone, so they left me. I haven't fed them in a week, and of course on all these lakes we got loons, and they go at the very last minute.
Very last minute, they wait. Those youngsters have to be adult size. They have to be able to get off the lake before the ice is in, and so they need a long.
And I think you always read about it, but I think there's always a loon rescue somewhere in the state because the ice closes before they don't have enough runway.
Right, they come right down to the last minute and beyond. Sometimes. Yeah. But these are some of the things that is what I mean about how exciting the migration is. It's so different for different species, different families of birds. The smaller the passerines, like the warblers and the thrushes. Absolutely an amazing migration. Yellow warblers, which I think Rob has a slide of a
all right, well, why don't we start doing that? Let's
run.
Oh, this
yellow
one.
warbler. This bird spends the least amount of time of all the warblers in North America. They come up after overwintering down in the tropics, Central America, down into a little bit of northern South America, Venezuela, Colombia. And some will go down into like many of the other warblers, down into the Caribbean, different islands. They come up and they're there for mid-August. They leave, one brood, and they're out of here. The sparrows are a little bit later. White-throated sparrows a little bit later. And some of our sparrows, we're in an area where, interesting as far as the migration goes. North of us here, the birds are migrating, and the white-throated sparrow we can have through the winter here also. Right. Again, it's not. We're in kind of a border area here for many species. Unbelievably, these couple of birds that we've talked about, including the robin, one of our thrushes, they make this migration at night. They migrate at night, which they can avoid the predation by the hawks, which all migrate during the day. So by avoiding the hawks, they migrate at night. And I think one of the most amazing parts of the migration is the fact that these birds, these tiny, tiny bundles of feathers, they use the stars to navigate by. It's really phenomenal when you look at this. So you can go out any night from here on in. You say you don't see them, but if you look in the right direction and listen in the right direction, then you can hear little chirps and chips of these birds flocking together, staying together, flying at night.
How high do they fly?
Long distance. Well, there are some reports that we get from Doppler radar, and they can actually see them at thousands of feet. I'm often over at the White Mountain Hotel doing programs in the fall for the foliage tours coming through, and I'll get out at 10 o'clock at night, and I think the birds come in by the ledge there. It seems to be a little bit noisier there with chirps and cheeps, and depending upon the night, depending upon the weather, depending upon the cloud cover, and it's just so fascinating to get a glimpse of something that's gone on for thousands of years, and all of a sudden you're part of it. So it's,
I mean, what do you, I mean,
it's great.
I mean, we always read about the birds migrating, facing these challenges. They run into skyscrapers.
Right.
They run into wind turbines.
Right. Windows.
All that.
Disoriented by the lights.
What about the satellites? Satellites. I mean, it seems like if they're navigating by the stars, if we have all these extra things in the space.
You know, they've, or even the clouds. Now, Cornell University did a study on this. How do we know they use the stars? They're not interviewed after the migration. Well, how'd it go this year?
Right.
You know? So they put these birds in, you know, sky domes. What do you call those?
Planetarium?
Planetariums.
Yeah. Sky domes, we call them up here.
Yeah, sky domes. Out in Chatham, we call them sky domes. Oh, God. So they put up an artificial sky with a direction that isn't south. And they put the birds in there during a phase of what's called migratory restlessness, when they're full of hormones that are just making them move and they need to fly south. So they put these birds in, they ink their feet, they put them in a little cage, and they put paper down, and they can see the birds trying to go in a southerly direction according to the artificial sky.
Really?
That might not be southerly.
Right.
And then they can switch that around, and they'll still go in what they believe from the stars to be a southerly direction. They'll block out certain stars, certain clusters of stars, and some of them that will shut that down. They won't go. But others, if they have a portion of that sky map, then they can tell what direction to go into. So they can migrate on partially cloudy nights.
Wow. And so what else do we have? I know we have a couple others. That's
so even our larger birds, which is the
sand crane?
No, close.
Heron?
Yeah, this is a great blue heron.
Okay.
We have nesting around here, but not only, as I mentioned, food being the driver for the migration, the habitat, they'll lose their water habitat. It freezes in. Same with the loons, same with the mallards. So these birds, for the most part, we occasionally will find one in a stream on a Christmas bird count. Might have lost their migratory map. So this is a general map of many of our small passerines where they would go, and it's hard to see, but around around Cuba and some in the Greater and Lesser Antilles, there, the shore is also a place where these birds will overwinter. But you can, you know, it gives you that's a phenomenal distance. And in some cases, like our black-polled warbler, they can fly over 2,000 miles out over the Atlantic Ocean and come down, leave here, leave the coast of New England, fly out over the ocean and come down, hitting the coast of Brazil and the northern portion of Venezuela there, down into central Brazil to overwinter.
So is that map, I mean, you get the breeding, obviously you can see but there's green, but what's the white?
The white is where you don't find them.
You don't find what?
You don't find this, but this is for the yellow warbler.
Oh,
but it's
okay.
It's generally for our passerines, our smaller birds that can't find enough to eat here through the winter months.
Okay.
So at night, the small birds leave, and now we're really in the height of the migration of hawks. And turkey vultures, a familiar sight around here. They're included with the hawks. There's some ornithological discrepancy there. They're more closely related to herons than they are to raptors, but we have them. This is a bird, the black vulture, which is making its way further north. We've got them in southern New Hampshire. There was some reports in Durham the other day. They're moving further out. This is our only other vulture in the east here, black vulture and turkey vulture.
And they, I'm sorry, maybe we could just, okay, go ahead. Yep, go ahead.
And they'll be on the move. They're still around. They'll be on the move a little bit later, and they feed mostly on carrion, of course.
Now you had said that, I think I overheard you say it once, that one of the reasons why the vultures are moving north is because of the roads system.
Right.
and
right.
roadkill.
The interstate roads. I had an early morning trip the other day down to southern New Hampshire, and there were ravens all along the road after a night of traffic, and they were looking for roadkills. And you could see them just going right down the roads. Turkey vultures do the same thing.
And it's always that not crazy thing, but amazing thing that crows know how to get out of the way of cars.
For the most part.
Occasionally. The other ones,
occasionally,
you don't see those.
yeah, you don't see those. But yeah, that's an important source of food for them.
Yeah.
So this is this bird. The migration is on right now. This has a relatively specific migration for what I think is an interesting reason. This is a broadwing hawk, very common bird that we have around here. And during the teen week, this week of September, pretty much the entire population as a whole lifts up and heads out of the area. All ages and all sexes, they migrate together because they don't go over water. So they have to retain as much of their fat resource as possible. So they glide pretty much all the way down through Panama and into South America.
Say that again, they don't go over water?
They won't go over water because they use thermals, and thermals, warmer bundles of air, rise over land and not over water. So you'd see them specifically going around Conway Lake. You'd see them going around Lake Winnipesaukee. They avoid bodies of water because they can't get the lift. And by all going together, if you look out and you look for a thermal, what's a thermal look like? If you're standing on Mount Washington and you look out.
Nothing.
Nothing. You can't see it unless there's a bird in it that has already found it and it's going up. So they spread out, and when one of them finds a thermal, they can all see it, and they'll go in that direction, and they'll kettle up.
So you're kettle up, is that the word?
Yeah, they kettle because it looks like a boiling cauldron.
Huh. So you're leading a walk next week on the Tin Mountain.
Yeah, I have a talk at Tin Mountain on, I think it's Wednesday night. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's Wednesday night. Anyone that's interested can call Tin Mountain. That's at 7 o'clock. It's either Wednesday or Thursday. And then Saturday, we're going to go up Sabattis in Lovell and watch for hawks. And this is the time of year. Not just the broadwings, other birds are starting to move too.
But how many, like when you say you're going up to look for hawks, I mean, it's sort of like, there's one, there's one.
Well, it depends. You can see a kettle of broadwings this time of year that would have hundreds in the kettle.
You can see
it. Yes, yeah. Pac Monadnock in the southern part of the country, they have hawk watchers every single day, and some days are better than others. And we just put the date out, and we just hope we get some activity. And it doesn't always work that way. Mount Agamenticus is a big over in, I think it's York or Ogunquit. That's a big hawk watching spot. They come down the coast, and then they get some lift over that.
Aren't there places, is it in Pennsylvania where there's famous?
Pennsylvania, Hawk Mountain, Pennsylvania.
Good name.
Yeah, where people used to go to shoot these birds on the migration. They were vermin. They were, stealing people's chickens. And so there were bounties put on them, and for sport and fun, I guess, unbelievably, people would go to this spot because there's a break in it's the Kittatinny Ridge of the Appalachians. Here we have our mountains are spread out quite a bit through here. So we don't have that definitive line. You get further south into Pennsylvania, it's one line. Every one of our hawks here, from the Canadian Maritimes, above Prince Edward Island, all the way down through the northeast here, they will funnel through this ridge. And it's amazing. It's an amazing, I used to lead trips down there. I haven't in a while.
I mean, the bird population, we all hear that there's some X billion fewer birds than there used to be. I mean, obviously it's for habitat, all that. But how does that balance against the good things? I mean, when you go to, even if you just go to residential neighborhoods, there are all the trees that have grown up and all that. I mean, what's the mix?
Right. Well, we are in a decline with our songbirds, and I think probably the most of it is because of their overwintering grounds, where they're headed. Any of the birds that go to South America, they're losing forest, depleted. I've heard some examples of forest depletion the size of the state of Maine every year, which is, it's unbelievable. And the problem with that is that forest doesn't come back. All the nutrients are in the biology. Unlike ours, we've got a lot of nutrients in the soil. We have clear cutting, and it comes back eventually.
But I read actually related to that. I was reading a story about how, like in places like Costa Rica, that a lot of the old small village, a lot of the old farmers, like sort of our farmers that used to, farm this hard scrabble here, they've left, and so a lot of the jungle is growing back in certain areas. Now I realize that's not the same as the massive clear cutting and all that.
Right. So whatever changes in the environment, whether natural or are really related to human endeavors, it's probably going to benefit some species, and it's going to deplete others. Red-winged blackbirds, they seem to be all over the place. They can be in wet areas, they can be open fields, they can be in some smaller forested areas, and they do quite well. And their population seems to be doing quite well. We have other issues other than the overwintering grounds. We have pesticide issues. Our swallows are really, really down, and it's got to be because of pesticides. They're in some areas, they just aren't there anymore. People that have, barn swallows that come back to the same barns, they're just not there anymore. So
and it's amazing how year to year, because this summer was a big year for fireflies.
It was. I noticed that. I noticed that too. Yeah. And so, that's interesting to think about. That's not one of our migrators.
No, they just bury larvae or something, and they come out next year.
And that's where the term glowworm comes from. That's the larvae of the firefly. They actually glow in the larval form.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, that's nice. Do we have any more birds?
So there's a red-tailed hawk. There's a very closely related to the broad-winged hawk. This is our largest buteo. That's the genus. Mm-hmm. And there'd be, and of course this one is the adult with the red tail. Some of our red tails will stay through the winter. Some will just go to the coast. Some will go down to Massachusetts, and some will go further away. They feed on larger mammals. So again, their source of food is a little bit more available in the winter. Mm-hmm. So that's the silhouette of the broadwing. That's one genus we have 4 out of about 15 different species of hawks. The next silhouette is a silhouette of the accipiters. This is the true hawk that chases other birds. And we have sharpshins, we have coopers, and we have northern goshawks. That long tail, this is the sharpshin. It's got a long tail. And look at that big mitt on that bird. Look at those talons. Yeah. That's huge compared to the size of the bird. The male's about the size of a blue jay. Female's a little bit bigger. All the hawks, the females are larger. It's a reversed sexual size dimorphism. That's the topic for another conversation.
You're going to throw that
another
out.
conversation.
I know
it might be X-rated. I don't know. Do you do that on here? No.
Well, you can come back for the evening show.
Okay. Yeah. This is another sharpshin, and this picture, this is a female, and a long tail. So they feed on other hawks. Some of them will stay around. October 1st is pretty much the high point of the sharpshin migration, but some will stay around and come in. This is the hawk that people see coming into their bird feeder, or flash by when a goldfinch is trying to get a morsel to eat. This is where the sharpshin will come in and feed on them. And this is the largest of the accipiters. This is the northern goshawk. Just a spectacular, big bird, the size of our buteos. And goshawk is a derivative of goosehawk. They're that large and aggressive. They can feed on.
I don't think I've ever seen one.
Feed on
Are they
geese.
common?
I wouldn't say they're common. They nest in old growth forests, so big pines, and we have them around here in National Forest. A good friend of mine, Chris Costello, has worked on the goshawks for years in the area here. like any of the predators, there are not a lot of them because they're at the top of the food chain.
Right.
They're feeding on the things that are more abundant below. Yeah. But that's a beautiful, beautiful bird. And this silhouette leaps out as the other genus of falcons. Pointed wings, squared off tail, big head, and we have the American kestrel, our smallest falcon. This is the male. We also have Merlin falcons, and we have the peregrine falcon here. Nesting on our ledges because of Cornell University back in the 70s doing a reintroduction of this bird. They were completely wiped out in the Northeast. Completely gone because of pesticides.
Well, in fact, we've been on the on your tour for the in the coast of Maine. What are the birds?
The puffins.
The puffins.
The puffins.
Because that's a Cornell story too about how they introduced
absolutely, absolutely.
And
Steve
I tell
Kress,
this story. I've told this story about how in the 70s it takes 7 years. Once they're born, they fledge and they go out in the ocean for 7 years. So they had to do it 7 years in a row to see if they came back.
What a project! That you're not going to know how it turns out. But a great success. And our peregrines were a great success. The ones that nested here first showed up on the skyscrapers in Boston and in New York, because that's cliff-like for them with plenty of pigeons to feed on.
Yeah.
So now we have peregrines coming back to the valley.
Yeah, nice.
Which is great.
What is that?
The osprey. Yeah, this is a bird you'd see out on Conway Lake fishing. They feed entirely on fish. Our ospreys, for the most part, have left the area here. We have a population up on Lake Umbagog. We have a population down in Great Bay, and they feed entirely on fish. They have to be out of here before the lakes freeze over. But there's still some. I was over on the coast last week. There's still some on the coast. Of course, they can fish a little bit longer, but they'll leave here completely. And the osprey is the only member in its family. So it's the only member in its genus, only member in its family. And this is another individual that we have. This is what used to be called the marsh hawk, and now it's called the northern harrier. And this bird is the only harrier that we have in North America. And you can see it has an owl-like face. It uses sound to find its prey. So that's another bird that doesn't fit.
Because if you see that, I mean, if you see that bird, the harrier, on like over an open field, see a big bird just hovering, not hovering, but just slowly gliding like 10 or 15 feet off, that can be that bird.
Interestingly enough, they have a dihedral to their wings. The wingtips are held up above the body, the same as the turkey vulture, and that's a design for slow flight. They can glide easily, slowly, and they feed on a lot of small birds and rodents in the fields. A beautiful bird to watch, as you say, over just gliding back and forth over a field.
And we have you must have an eagle. No eagles?
No eagles.
No.
I don't know. They slipped out of the
they
picture.
Go because we've got two at Conway Lake. We've had 2 eagles this year.
Yeah, some of them will stay, Mark. So it seems like what we've found out in more recent years with satellite telemetry, where we can follow these birds, they seem to move around a lot. They seem to move around. Some of them will migrate south and then come back up. Along the coast, they seem to be prevalent even throughout the winter. And here, where anyone's fishing and throwing their fish away, ice fishing, throwing what they don't want away, the birds seem to know that. And they can cover quite a bit of ground in a short period of time. But we have 2 populations of bald eagles, and one peaks in the migration south in August, and one peaks further on into the season. We have another eagle that we see very much lower individual sightings, the golden eagle.
Okay, I was going to ask about that.
And that's a bird that the bald eagle is the fish eagle in the Haliaetus genus. They feed primarily on fish, but they'll feed on carrion also.
I've seen one when we had our big. I'm going to interrupt you here, when we had our big squirrel year, 3 or 4 years ago. Remember all those squirrels that were jumping in the water and all that to get wherever they were getting?
Right.
I saw an eagle grab a squirrel out
of
Conway Lake.
They'll feed on just about whatever they want to feed on. And we have artificially inflated population on the Maine coast, and they've been feeding on many of our seabirds. You mentioned the puffins, great blue herons, and you know, the great blue heron, that's a big bird. Yeah. And the bald eagles can feed on those.
They're always a big threat. That's, you know, it's Conway Lake, the loons come to have a couple chicks. It's always a big deal.
Big deal with the eagles. The eagles, you know, they find the loons are quite tasty.
Okay, we only have, literally, we're out of time already, but we have like a minute. So any advice as we're heading into the fall season about bird feeders or anything? Good food, bad food? What do you suggest?
Yeah, I stick for the most part to sunflower seeds. Black oil, I don't even think you can get the striped anymore. It's high in oil content, and that's good. Some people wait until the bears are out of here. Yeah. Some people don't.
And what about suet?
Suet is great. Yeah, all the time. You can have suet out there, and you'll get woodpeckers coming in, and you'll get some of the hardy. We have pine warblers. Sometimes will stick around, and they'll go after that fatty, nutritious. Really sustainable source of
All right,
food.
So we're going to wrap this up, but I got to give a plug for your book.
Yeah,
this
great.
is out last year, The Science of Watching, the Art of Seeing, and the Power of Nature Absorption. Quite the title and quite the book.
A mouthful.
I recommend it.
Well, thanks. I know you read it, and it's got a section on travel, on our travel, and on migration in there, a chapter, as you know. Yeah, well, thanks, Mark. This has been
always a pleasure.
This has been great.
All right, we'll see you next season.
All right, I'll be there.
All right,
Thank you.
Care.
Yeah, great.